Hello and welcome back, Squirrel Nation. I hope you're all having an outstanding day. Today we are going to cover the new update. I'm just going to go through it quickly, and I am doing this differently than before. So before, what I would do is I would normally play the patch a little bit, and then I could give you my impression after the patch dropped. But this time I'm going to actually just do my predictions based on the changes. So let me know in the comments which style you all like, or do you like both styles? Do you want me to do one before the patch actually comes out and predict, and then one after and kind of say, hey, these predictions were right, these were wrong, and this is what I'm seeing? So anyways, let me know in the comments. With that said, you will be watching when you all see this video. I think the patch will have just dropped, so you will be hopefully get all the benefit out of this. Anyways, Divinity, the CD reduction is down to 40% from 50. It is a change. It's I won't say super significant, but it is significant. Overall, when we look at all these changes, I'll cover that after I read through all of them, and that the Divinity will come back up. So Fortune Teller, a pretty big nerf from 15 to 18 seconds, but that's only going to affect Divinity comps. In Glacier comps or like your Fortune Teller usually will only ult once, maybe twice, but very rarely ult twice. So it doesn't really affect Glacier teams, but it does affect Divinity teams, especially when you stack it with 50% cooldown going to 40%. Desperate Doctor, this nerf is it hurts Desperate Doctor for sure, but he's still good. So the way that his ult works is it bounces. It used to bounce 5, 7, and 9 times, and now it's 4, 6, and 8. Realistically, you're only getting him to 2-star, so we're talking 7 bounces is down to 6 bounces, and each bounce is 1 second of crowd control, essentially a 1 second stun. So, it's not a huge nerf, but it is a nerf. Once again, that nerf I think is targeting Divinity more than it is Glacier. Divinity, the Desperate Doctor is going to ult multiple times, like maybe 3 or 4 times in a Divinity comp, maybe even more than that. In a Glacier comp, your Desperate Doctor is probably only going to ult maybe like 2 to 3 times max, I would say. So Tusker, this one doesn't even make sense to me because it says change from 10 seconds to 10 seconds from 10 seconds, so I don't know. I'm assuming that's a typo. Lordasan, this is probably one of the biggest nerfs because this is a 25% nerf to his stun, so the stun's down to 1.5 seconds from 2 seconds. I think this is... I'm fine with this. Overall, if you look at the changes, they've been reducing the amount of hard CC. So hard CC to me is like a stun. You can't move, you can't cast, you can't attack type of thing. They did it to Pirate Captain, they did it to Tsunami Stalker. I think they just kind of want to limit the amount of hard CC in the game. And another thing is, if you look at how contested Lordasan is, right? How many different comps he fits in, every game you're playing, how many teams are trying to grab him, it is extremely high. This came up when me and Shredded Puzzle did our tier list, so I'm not that surprised that he also is getting nerfed. Dragon Knight, outstanding change, his damage. So the way he works is he has auto attack damage, and then when he's in dragon form, he has magic, an added magic damage to it. So that added magic damage is up to 30 damage from 10 per second. So that's a really big buff to him. Of his overall damage, you have to consider his overall damage. So his auto attack, it's probably like 30 damage is probably, I think at 2-star, I want to say that's like 10%. And actually, well, you know what? Let's not guess. Let's go look. And we can use the in-game encyclopedia. Why not? So you can all see how I go. So normally we're talking about 2-stars. So you see his attack is 110, but that's before he's in dragon form. And when he goes into dragon form, the attack will be enhanced and 150, right? So yeah, he's doing about 260 damage, and then you're talking about another 30 on top of that. So yeah, okay, 8% damage. So, but either way, that's really nice because it's up quite a bit. Skull Hunter, this change is very interesting to me because his debuff. So what happens is when he's level 1, he after he throws his axes, any enemy that's hit takes 10% additional damage. But the really good thing about his ultimate is it scales with his stars. So when he goes to 2-star, it's 20%. When he goes to 3-star, it's 30%. Once again, I assume 2 stars in general, so you're talking 20% instead of 5 seconds, it becomes 10 seconds. That's really, really long, especially for marksmen. Basically all marksmen are going to have about a 1 second attack speed when you take in items and just their base attack speeds. So before 5 seconds, you're talking about 5 auto attacks, but now you're talking about 10 auto attacks. That's death for most heroes. And then so 20% added damage is another way to think about that, is actually stronger than the entire Agarus synergy. So if you have 2 Agarus, which people mix into these comps to strip armor, you're actually getting more damage enhancement just from the Skull Hunter's ultimate. So that's the way that I would think about that. Okay. E-Ranger buff, I think as an individual unit this makes sense. E-Ranger is so underwhelming. Even at 3 stars, I don't necessarily load my items on her. She does have really fast attack speed, but her just base damage and stuff is not good. And then, I mean, for her, she's only an auto attack hero since she doesn't have an ultimate. So I think she did need this. The problem is going to be, I think their hunters after the Dwarf Sniper changes have already become viable. They're a comp that I use quite a bit now. And there's a large variety of different hunter comps you can use, and they're viable. So my fear with the fact that they're buffing 2 different hunters that are the weak hunters is hunters are going to get out of control. So we'll see how that goes. Some more mage changes. I like the direction they're going. They're reducing the attack speed. From our mana regeneration guide, you'll all remember that this is significant because you don't care about your mage's auto attacks. What you care about is their mana regeneration, and when you speed up their auto attacks, you're speeding up their mana regeneration. So I think that's nice. So, but now onto the predictions. After all these changes, Divinity heavily nerfed, right? A lot of core pieces were nerfed out of Divinity. Divinity will be hurting. They won't be anywhere near where they are now. Do I think they'll be unusable? No. Do I think they'll be top tier? Probably not. I would right now, if you took Divinity from like the tier 1, the very top teams, I would probably knock them down to tier 2. The other comps that are going to be affected would be Dragon Knights. So Dragon Knights are interesting, and somebody very specifically asked me about Dragon Knights for this video, so I'll discuss that a bit. Is Dragon Knights, if you think about why they became weak, why they fell off, they used to be a tier 1 comp. So what happened to them? Well, it wasn't any nerf to them. So it wasn't a nerf to dragons. Knights got a minor nerf, right? They got the six times Knights got reduced by 5%. So, I mean, a minor nerf, but a nerf. But they just totally fell off. So you ask yourself why, and the reason why is actually because counter compositions became much stronger. So things that do really well against Dragon Knights got strong. So Dragon Knights actually didn't die because they got nerfed. They died because the things that stomp on them got buffed. And then on that note, Divinity was one of those things. Divinity got nerfed. Is that enough for Dragon Knights to come back? And then Dragon Knight is getting buffed himself. Is it enough for Dragon Knights to come back? Maybe. But here's a big problem. Another comp that absolutely smashes Dragon Knights is Glacier Knights or Glacier Warrior. Glacier anything stomps on dragons. And Glacier right now is in a really, really good spot. I think with Divinity getting reduced, Glacier for sure is in the tier 1. And I think Marksman now are going to be in a tier 1 comps. So now you have Marksman and you have Glacier that are tier 1 comps. And to me, a definition of a tier 1 comp is something that's consistently going to get top 3s. So the fact that one of their heaviest counters is that tier 1 comp, to me still is going to limit Dragon Knight's potential. But dragons will still not be contested, and if you can get up your dragons to 3-star, then you will be in a good spot. But a dynamic between Dragon Knights and Glacier Knights that you always have to consider is the core damage of Dragon Knights is harder to get to 3-star. Okay, so the core damage of Dragon Knights is a 4-cost unit. So it's very hard to get a 3-star Dragon Knight, right? But if you look at Glacier Knights, the core damage, most of us will agree, is Berserker. However, Some other really good damage in Glacier are Lightblade Knight and Hell Knight. They're 2 costs. They're really easy to get to 3-star because they're not that contested. So that's where that I don't know, that's where Dragon Knight kind of falls off just from the cost of its damage carries point of view also. But anyways, I think that's enough on that, so we'll move on. So Hunters, yeah, Hunters I just see being really strong because, like I said, they're already in a good spot. They're already, to me, on the border of a tier 1 comp. Like, I've been putting out a decent amount of videos of different hunter compositions. Like, you have feathered hunters, you have warrior frontline hunters, you have druid frontline hunters. So there's already so much variation on hunters. And as all you know, I think variation is what makes a comp truly strong, because it becomes consistent, because you're not set into a very small hero pool. You have a very large hero pool to draw from, and you can go in a lot of different directions, and that's what makes something consistent across 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 games. So this takes one of the weakest hunters that you normally really wouldn't use, Skull Hunter, and definitely buffed him in a way that will help hunter comps. And same thing with E-Ranger. E-Ranger was already an amazing hunter that you're mixing in these comps that I'm talking about. You're mixing your E-Ranger with your Soul Reaper to get that Agaris, plus you're adding in your Warlock, right? And then you just have your 3 hunters and sit back and destroy things. So now when you're taking the E-Ranger, which was kind of lackluster in the damage, and you're boosting up its damage a lot, then, I mean, that's really going to help out those hunter comps. So I think hunters boost to tier 1. Mages, until they add back in mages, then I just don't see them being viable. The reason why is 3 mages is lackluster, 6 mages is amazing, but when they took out Blight Sorcerer, they took out Ogre Magi, so now you only have 6 mages. And one of them is legendary. You have to get a Zeus, and Zeus is competed for with Divinity players. So it's just, I mean, it's almost impossible to get 6 mages. I would say you're running more of a gamble to go 6 mages than you are going 6 goblins. And hopefully that fact alone drives my point home to most of you. So anyways, I think that's it. Those are my predictions. We will see how things play out. Like I said, in the comments, let me know if you want me to do a after the patch update. So maybe like 2 or 3 days from now, I can do another video covering the patch, and we can see which of my predictions were right, which ones were wrong, and discuss a little more. But anyways, as always, take care, happy ranking, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.